humans have accomplished wonders on earth. Our penetrating vision is unveiling the mysteries of nature. We are endlessly watching the world around us. The seers of the Upanishads carefully studied this attribute of human nature thousands of years ago. They observed that all our sensory organs open outwardly. Hence, by nature, we are bound to always seek outwards. As a result, our mind and intellect always remain entangled in the external world. The changes of the world keep us oscillating between pleasure and pain. Modern scientific accomplishments have failed to give us lasting happiness. But the sages of ancient India invented a unique technique of keeping the mind free and peaceful. This technique is documented in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. The Yoga Sutras are like the compilation of answers of an inquiring mind. It opens with the aphorism, "Now begins the exposition of yoga." The question arises, what is yoga? Yoga is the cessation of the changing modes of Chitta consciousness. The next question one may ask, what is the benefit of practicing yoga? Through yoga, the seer abides in his own self. Does that mean we dwell in some other form? Throughout our lives, we identify ourselves with the changing modes of Chitta consciousness. Do we live in changing modes of consciousness throughout our lives? Do we never ever know our own true self? What a tragedy it would be that we know the whole world and not know our own self. So what is our real nature? Patanjali describes the layers that cover the self and provides techniques to uncover them. Who was Patanjali? What was the nature of Yoga Shastra which he propounded? What was the nature of yoga before Patanjali? What form did it take after Patanjali? Is the history of yoga linked to the history of religion and faith? Or is it the story of an honest effort by man to conquer disease, old age, and death? We seek the answers with our journey into India's 6,000 years of known history. The story of philosophy on which the Indian mind is based is a story of India itself. It is generally believed that Patanjali was from the Nag tribe. He was the writer of 3 treatises, Vyakran Mahabhashya, Yoga Sutras, and Ayurveda Samhita. With Yoga Shastra, he eliminated the impurities of the mind. Through grammar, he eliminated the impurities of speech, and through his composition on Ayurveda, the ailments of the body. If it is true that all these 3 Shastras were composed by a single man, Patanjali, then we can say he was certainly an extraordinary genius. Here is the famous fort of Chittor, which finds a small connection with sage Patanjali. In his composition on grammar, Patanjali gives an illustration. Madhyamika is being surrounded by the Greeks. Madhyamika was the ancient name of Chittor. Greek warriors surrounded the fort of Chittor between 184 to 148 BC. This illustration suggests that Patanjali may have lived during the time of King Pushyamitra Shung. Also, an inscription on the rock edict says that Patanjali performed a yajna for King Pushyamitra Shung. Very little else is known about his life. Amazingly, the Yoga Sutras that Patanjali wrote could be fitted onto one single page. This is his complete work on yoga, which was later elaborated by Maharishi Vyas. It is not known when the tradition of yoga came into existence, but on the basis of Sankhya philosophy, Patanjali compiled the sutras with precise classifications, sequences, and logic. In the history of mankind, Patanjali is perhaps the first one who demystified the elements of consciousness and arranged them scientifically. Ancient Indians had applied a unique technique for seeking knowledge. Here, the experimentation, testing, and observation were not performed externally, but inside the human body and mind. It was believed all that exists in the human body, the same exists in the universe. So for acquiring knowledge, the use of telescope, microscope, or chemicals was not required. Instead, the observer himself became like a telescope and a microscope. It was believed that if the chitta consciousness of the observer is focused, pure, and peaceful, his vision would also become clear and focused. The process of concentrating the chitta consciousness is yoga. Therefore, yoga in India left its mark on many philosophies, arts, and sciences. But the concentration in yoga has a specific purpose. The way Ayurveda cures the diseases of the body, the same way yoga alleviates the disease of the mind, suffering. There are 4 chapters in Yoga Shastra. The first is Samadhipad. This chapter is meant for highly evolved practitioners. Here, various techniques and progressive dimensions of yogic concentrations are mentioned. After prolonged practice of concentration with total detachment, the state of self-realization is attained. The wisdom of the state is called Ritambhara Pragya. It is beyond the intellect. In fact, it removes the impressions of intellect. This state of samadhi cannot be achieved through ordinary wisdom. So the ordinary person has to start with yoga from the second chapter, Sadhanpad. Here, 8 limbs of yoga are explained sequentially: restraint, discipline, posture, regulation of breath, withdrawal, concentration, meditation, and samadhi. Yamas are 5: non-violence, truth, non-stealing, non-possession, and celibacy. Niyamas are also 5: cleanliness, contentment, austerity, recitation, and reverence for God. Patanjali saw God as a means for the cessation of the mind. He did not see God as the creator, destroyer, or operator of the universe. He was just a unit of consciousness which is free from the bondages of nature, Prakriti. The theory of yoga is Sankhya, which is atheist in nature. The priests of those times opposed it and tried to infuse elements of religion into it. Religion demands faith, but yoga is entirely existential, experiential, and experimental. The seeker, by controlling and regularizing his daily conduct through yam and niyam, sits in an asana. Asana is a comfortable and pleasant posture of the body. The body should not move. The vision should either be on the tip of the nose or the center of the eyebrows or at a target point. When one practices an asana for several hours, the body becomes steady and the chitta consciousness is rested in the infinite. On acquiring stability, the seeker then regulates the breath, and when the breath becomes subtle, that is pranayam. Pranayam purifies the mind and also cleanses the channels of energy. By making the breath subtler, the most hyperactive mind can also be controlled. After pranayam, the practice of withdrawing the mind from external objects and focusing it inwardly is practiced. Our life is nurtured through the sensory experiences of speech, touch, vision, taste, and smell, known as ahar. The reversal of this process, by withdrawing the senses from the external and taking ahar from within, is known as pratyahar. The inner journey of yoga begins from here. When the mind gets intermittently stabilized at any one point, that is known as dharana. The point of concentration can either be an object, real or abstract, or a thought. When dharana gets prolonged, it becomes dhyana. When dhyana gets extended further, it results in samadhi. Samadhi is the purest and steady state of being. Patanjali was not the discoverer of yoga. Where did it all begin? Traditionally, it is believed that Sankhya is the oldest philosophy of India. The Mahabharata also describes Sankhya and Yoga as Sanatana philosophies, that which have been in existence forever. But who was the first yogi? The name that resonates from the farthest end of Indian thought is that of sage Kapil, the originator of Sankhya, the greatest achiever of yoga. In the Gita, Yogi Krishna declares, "Amongst the highest achievers, I am Kapil Muni." People believe that no one ever perfected yoga like sage Kapil. But there are problems regarding the historical evidence of Kapil's existence. Therefore, let us begin the history of yoga from here. The figure of this 5,000-year-old seal appears to be that of a yogi in meditation. With respect to time and geographical area, the Indus Valley was the oldest and largest civilization on earth. Evidence of this yogi seal is found all over its biggest settlements. Surprisingly, the animals mentioned in these mantras of the Rig Veda are the same as depicted in the Harappa seal.
पशुपति को जो उनके पिता हैं और जो ध्यान की मुद्रा में है, वे शांभवी मुद्रा में स्थित हैं.
You can easily visualize Shambhavi Mudra in these twilight eyes, because here on this Harappa bust, the Shambhavi Mudra is clearly visible.
बाहर संसार को भी देख रहे हैं, साथ साथ अपने भीतर अंतर्हित हैं, योग की मुद्रा में हैं. अब वे भद्रासन में बैठे हुए हैं. इस बात को प्राय लोगों ने नहीं समझा है. भद्रासन बड़ा विकट होता है, जिसमें कि दोनों एड़ियां जो हैं इस तरह से मिल जाती हैं.
This statue was created 2,000 years after the Harappa civilization. Here also the mother goddess is shown with 3 faces and seated in a yogic asana. In the present time also, women of this area wear similar bangles. If we consider the role of women at the center of Harappa civilization and this seal to be that of Mother Goddess, then there is a strong possibility that Harappa society was matriarchal. The legendary 19th century Indian philosopher and writer Bankim Chandra Chatterjee writes, "The sound of the drummers of the Durga festival reminds us of the Sankhya philosophy." What made him think so? Let's understand Sankhya, the philosophy of yoga. The ancient texts state that Sankhya and yoga are one. If Sankhya is the theory, yoga is its practice. Sankhya means accurate knowledge. Coincidentally, Sankhya also means numbers. To put it simply, it is a philosophy of the elements of nature in which the conscious entity is entangled. For the disentanglement of the self, the Sankhya philosophers used to meditate on the elements of nature. Sankhya considers 2 basic constituents in every living being: primal nature and conscious entity. Primal nature is known as Prakriti. Prakriti is the equilibrium of 3 basic elements: Sattva, Raj, and Tam. The conscious entity is known as Purusha. Pur meaning limits or boundary, and Sha meaning restfulness. Each Purusha residing in the body boundary is a restful unit of consciousness. Purusha is not one, but many. Prakriti is a single entity that extends throughout the universe and is very powerful. In the process of evolution, the 3 elements of Prakriti, are transformed into 24 elements of nature. Here, Purusha is totally detached and inactive observer. Sankhya considers Prakriti as the sole creator. Only Prakriti creates this world. Prakriti is also symbolized as a conceiver and a dancer, and is often compared with the personality of a woman. Professor D.P. Chattopadhyay suggests that the concepts of Sankhya, Yoga, and Tantra may have originated from the rituals, principles, and fabric of the matriarchal societies of that time. Wearing bangles, this mother goddess is seated in a yogic asana. This shows that Sankhya and Yoga were an integral part of the matriarchic society of Harappa. When the lifestyle of the Harappa people is studied, one finds that yam and niyam of yoga were practiced by these people. The most astonishing fact about this civilization is its abstinence from violence for almost 2,000 years. The yam of yoga brings self-discipline, and it seems that civil discipline was natural to these people, because amazingly, there is no evidence of centralized authoritarian rule.
There is no evidence of king or queen. We don't have palaces in fact in the Harappan levels. Probably it was controlled or maybe administered by a group of people. Like that is sort of a democracy. In fact that the Harappans are introduced. The democracy in this country has survived without any threat. So this is again the important contribution in fact of the Harappans.
The impression of Hatha Yoga is on the seals. Yam and niyam are part of their lifestyle. The status of women indicates the Sankhya philosophy. These are the indisputable marks of yoga in the Harappa civilization. With the decline of the Harappa civilization, India moved from the prehistoric period to historical times, when the readable literature of the Vedas came into being. To understand the emotions, aspirations, and songs of humans 4,000 years ago, Rigved is the only document.
ऋग्वेद की सबसे अधिक प्रसिद्ध ऋचा गायत्री मंत्र है और इस गायत्री मंत्र में जो कुछ कहा गया है अगर उसे ठीक से समझ लें तो सारा योग का विस्तार समझ में आ जाएगा। गायत्री मंत्र जहाँ से चालू हुआ, धीमहि ध्यान करें, पूजा करें, नमस्कार करें, ये नहीं है, प्रार्थना करें, ये नहीं है, ध्यान करें, धीमहि। किसका ध्यान करें? सविता का। क्रिएटिविटी, सर्जनशीलता। योग का एक प्रयोजन है, व्यावहारिक प्रयोजन है, व्यक्ति की चेतना इतनी जागृत हो जाए कि वो नवीन का सर्जन कर सके।
The language of Veda is symbolic. The elements of yoga are found all over its literature. In the Rigved, Hiranyagarbha is considered as the primal propounder of yoga. The fierce and wild character of Rudra of Rigveda remained throughout the later centuries with Yogi Shiva. The character and behavior of the Kesin Munis of the Rigved remind us of the later Hatha Yogis. They are called Vatrasna Muni, indicating Nadi Shuddhi and other pranayams.
अष्टाचक्र नवद्वारा देवानाम पूर्वयोध्या.
Innumerable references of technique and philosophy of yoga are found in the Atharva Veda, Brahmans, and Aranyakas. But the first revelation of the word yoga, in its classical sense, appears in the Taittiriya Upanishad and the Kat Upanishad. In Kat Upanishad, it is Yama, the king of death, who reveals the supreme knowledge and yoga together. The human desire of going beyond death is natural ever since our birth and is also the quest of yoga. Upanishads are also called Vedanta, the end portion of the Vedas. Chronologically, they were also written at the end of the Vedas.
The Upanishads will be something like 7th century BC, and as I explained to you, that there are two phases. The Seshwara Upanishads, this is a term newly coined. This is not a Sanskrit term. Theistic Upanishads can be placed in the later period, wherein Rudra is identified with the first principle. This is very significant because some of the proto-yoga things, practices, which are understood in the Aranyaka and Upanishad portions of the Veda as a whole, they are also presupposed by Buddhism, by Buddha, and to some extent by Mahavira.
Gautam Buddha was born in the 6th century BC in Lumbini, in the foothills of the Himalayas. His father, King Shuddhodhan, provided him with all the luxuries for his enjoyment and pleasure. But when he discovered the problems of old age, death, and disease, everything changed. At the age of 29, leaving behind his wife and son, the prince left home in search of the reality of life. He went deep into the forest, where yogis and ascetics used to practice. There in Vaishali, he met two yogis, Adar Kalam and Rudrak Ramputra. But, unconvinced by them, he went into isolation to perform rigorous penance. So intense was his determination that he put his life in extreme danger. But later he abandoned this rigorous practice and arrived at this place, and resting his back on the trunk of this peepal tree, sat in Padmasana. He resolved, "Let my body perish, but I will not leave this asana without knowing the ultimate reality." Here the asana finds its ultimate expression as propounded by Patanjali. He may also have practiced a mudra where the tongue touches the palate, which is the form called Kechari Mudra of medieval Hatha Yoga. At last, on the full moon day of the month of Vaishakh, he attained Nirvana. Buddha then sat in one asana for 7 long days, enjoying the bliss of liberation. Patanjali has described it as Ananda Nugat Samadhi. Then, through inhalation and exhalation, he meditated upon Pratitya Samudpad. This is known as Patanjali's Vitarka Nugat Samadhi. He then arose, walked, and stood here, motionless. This place later came to be known as Animesh Lochan, without blinking the eyes. For 7 continuous days, motionless, without blinking his eyes, he gazed upon his place of enlightenment. In Hatha Yoga, this practice of the blank gaze is known as Tratak and has great significance. Buddha's enlightenment preceded Patanjali by 300 years. As we see here, the precise use of asana, dhyana, and samadhi. These sutras show the influence of 2 Shraman traditions. Meditation and samadhi have the imprints of Buddhism, whereas the yam and the niyam are influenced by Jainism. The Jain tradition is older than the Buddhist. Its first Tirthankar, Rishabdev, is also mentioned in the Vedas. Rishabdev is also known as Adinath, the first and primal yogi. The first yogi of Hatha Yoga is also called Adinath. Tirthankaras are called Jin because of their victory over the senses. Most of the Jain Tirthankars are shown in the standing posture, Tadasana, leaving the sitting posture, Sukhasana. Patanjali defined yama as vrat, self-discipline. If anyone practices them religiously for life, these vrats become mahavrats, supreme self-discipline. Perhaps under the influence of Jainism, Patanjali called yama Mahavrat, the supreme self-discipline. The world hails the hero, the Veer, who shows prowess in the battlefield. But India calls the conqueror of the self, Mahavir, the greatest hero. Non-violence is the supreme dharma. This may be the core ideal of Jainism, but surprisingly, is not found in any of their ancient texts. Brother slashed the chest of his brother to color the hair of his wife with blood, but the outcome of that horrifying war was non-violence is the supreme dharma. This great saying is found in the Mahabharata. There is no knowledge like Sankhya and no power like yoga. This saying is also found in the Mahabharata. The Bhagavad Gita is part of the Mahabharata, further revolutionized yoga. Here, yoga moves out of the caves and jungles and is used as an indispensable tool to tackle the harsh realities of life. Yoga is considered essential even to win a war, the most horrendous of all acts in life. The Gita is not a philosophical text on yoga, but an inspirational poem. The composer of Gita is passionate about yoga. Each chapter concludes with the word yoga. All the 25 elements of Sankhya philosophy and the 8 limbs of yoga are expounded in its 18 chapters. In chapter 6, even the technique of yoga is described. The first 5 centuries AD are known as the classic age in Indian history in the field of science, philosophy, and literature. During this time, a yogi named Vyasa wrote a commentary on Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, which came to be known as Vyasa Bhashya. Today, this commentary is the best way to understand the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. These bronze idols are among the best sculptures in the world. In spite of modern techniques, today's craftsmen would find it hard to convey these expressions in their work. There is evidence that the craftsmen used to meditate upon the deity first and then transform their experiences into their work of art. Here, art has a dual purpose. For the craftsman, it is a test of his meditation, and for the viewer, the potential for the art to permeate his heart. Therefore, the creation of a sculpture is also a means and a goal for meditation. The experiences of meditation are beyond the senses. To be immersed in meditation, one has to transcend the intellect, because the intellect cannot describe these experiences. 1500 years ago, an unknown yogi created an astounding sculpture here. The experiences of spiritual serenity and grandeur have been personified in this cave. This is the expression of the pure, infinite state of being, the pinnacle of yogic experience, a state of mind that remains unmoved even by the end of the world. Taking the limitations of the human face, the three-dimensional reality of creation, existence, and destruction have been expressed on these rocks. That which scriptures fail to convey, a Shiva yogi unveiled on this rock. In dedication to the first yogi, Lord Shiva, stands the magnificent Kandarya Mahadev temple of Khajuraho. In the temples of Khajuraho, Maya, called illusion in the Vedanta, takes the form of the powerful Prakriti of Sankhya. Lazing around in Tamogun, playfully enjoying in Rajogun, and glowing internally in Sattvagun, this is all Prakriti. Her singing, dancing and playing creates surges of emotion. The whole ambience of the temples resonates with her presence. The presence of Purushya, it seems, is just for company. Here the statue of Purush is in a state described in Sankhya. The famous thinker Bankim Chandra Chatterjee says that it is the flag of Sankhya, not Tantra, that flies over the temples of Khajuraho. Sankhya believes that every unit of consciousness is an independent entity. And since it is detached and pure, it also has divinity. Therefore, in India it is believed that there are as many gods as there are people. This is the height of spiritual democracy and owes its existence to Sankhya, the philosophy of yoga. But among the presence of millions of gods and goddesses in India, the eminence that Lord Shiva enjoys is enormous. There are Shiva temples all over the country. For the last 5,000 years, Shiva has been worshipped in different forms. From Mount Kailash in Tibet to Rameshwaram in the south, the Hindu mind is influenced by Lord Shiva. On his journey in time and space, Shiva never abandoned the yogic form. In all his temples, we find the Kundalini of Hatha Yoga. At the base of the spinal cord, the Kundalini lies dormant in this way. According to ancient Indian thought, the origin of the universe is from sound. That primordial sound is still resonating in different layers of our consciousness.
Kanthumule Dhumrane Shodazare Vishuddhe Amami Me Mum Dim 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 Me Mum Hriday Pradeshi Raktavarne Dwadajale Anahat Chakre Kang 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 Chan Chan Yam Tam Aham Devo Nashanyavasmi Brahmaivaham Nashokabhag Satchidananda Rupoham Atmanam Iti Bhave Hakarena Bahiryati Sakarena Vishet Punah Hansatmakam Bhagavatim Jivo Japati Sarvada
Padheshu Shamana Chakrabhed Puri Soham Bhavehanashe Didaladalona.
Around 1000 AD, some extraordinary temples were built in a circular shape similar to the chakras. At the center of the temple, there is one deity. On the circumference, there are several. Attached to each deity is an animal, similar to the chakras of Kundalini. These deities are called yoginis, and these temples are known as the yogini temples. An Indian folklore legend has it that he was a great Hatha yogi who had prolonged his life through yoga and alchemy. Gorakhnath was a disciple of Matsyendranath, and Matsyendranath was a disciple of Lord Shiva, or Adinath. This is the Matsyendranath temple. This is the Matsyendra Asana and is said to be very effective in curing diabetes. Inspired by Gorakhnath, Yogi Swatmaram wrote Hatha Yoga Pradipika in the 14th century AD. This text is the quintessence of Hatha Yoga. Hatha Yoga Pradipika mentions 84 major asanas. Bhadrasana, which you saw on the 5,000-year-old Harappa seal, is illustrated in this book. Today, the yoga that has become popular all over the world is really the asanas of Hatha Yoga Pradipika. Hatha Yoga places more emphasis on the purification of the body, and its practice begins with the 6 steps of purification called Shatkarma. The importance given to the physical body by Hatha Yoga and Tantra is truly unique in the history of spirituality. In Hatha Yoga, the human body is seen not as a source of suffering, but an effective and reliable tool to eternal life. Since spiritual liberation is possible in this very birth, a healthy body is considered essential towards that end.
सदा रहे काल न कब सदा रहे काल न कब
India in the 18th century experienced caste discrimination, superstition, and dogmatism. Later, by the end of the 19th century, the British establishment astounded the minds of Indians by the charisma of their literature, knowledge, and science. Around the same time, this famous Kali temple was built. Here lived a famous priest called Ramakrishna Paramhans. He was one of the greatest yogis of the 19th century. It is not a coincidence that he was a devotee of Mother Goddess. Who else would a yogi worship other than Mother Nature, Prakriti? One of the spiritual masters of Ramakrishna was Avadut Totapuri. Here, Totapuri has ushered Ramakrishna to the last door of complete freedom. But the last door is not opening, and Totapuri is perturbed.
देखो रामकृष्ण, तुम अद्वैत की साधना में एक उंगल भी नहीं बढ़ पाए हो। मेरा धीरज खो रहा है, मैं चलता हूँ।
मैं क्या करूं? जब भी ध्यान लगाता हूं, माँ काली की प्रतिमा सामने आ जाती है।
तो उठाओ तलवार और टुकड़े कर दो काली के।
वहां कहां से लाऊंगा तलवार?
काली की प्रतिमा कहां से लाए? जिस चित से तुमने प्रतिमा की छवि बनाई है, उसी चित से तलवार भी बनाओ।
ठीक है, मैं कोशिश करता हूँ।
करो, कोशिश करो। उठाओ, उठाओ, तलवार उठाओ, उठाओ तलवार, उठाओ।
नहीं गुरुदेव, ये मुझसे नहीं हो रहा।
नहीं हो रहा? घबराओ मत, घबराओ नहीं, घबराओ नहीं। ये देखो, ये देखो।
And Ramakrishna immersed in samadhi, into the ultimate state of being, free from the last support. It is called Asampragyat Samadhi, the final stage of Patanjali's Ashtang Yoga. Yoga which descended in such perfection that Ramakrishna was a spiritual wonder. He became a Paramhans. Legend has it that when a poor outcast was beaten with a cane, the marks of injury appeared on the back of Ramakrishna. The doctrine of Vedanta says that a single consciousness permeates all of us. We are all but one consciousness. We may have read it in books, but it was visibly evident in Ramakrishna Paramhans. So far, we have completed the 6,000-year journey of the history of yoga. Alongside, we have also completed yet another journey. From searching for Yam and Niyam in the lives of the peace-loving people of the Indus Valley, we journeyed to the summit of Asampragyat Samadhi. The last support of meditation of Ramakrishna has thus fallen. The triangle of the knower, the knowledge, and the known has dissolved. This is the ultimate state of being. Yoga is the surest path which arrives at the summit of being, not philosophy, not even science. The experiences in yoga are beyond science, but they are now being quantified and verified by science. This work began when Vivekananda, Ramakrishna's greatest disciple, wrote Raj Yoga in the light of modern science. His Raj Yoga instilled the desire for freedom in educated Indians, and they started demanding their political freedom. The westward journey of yoga begins in 1893, when Vivekananda traveled to America. From here, the scientific experiments on yoga began.
चाहते हम हैं कि लर्नड बिहेवियर, हमारा जो सेरेब्रल ब्रेन है, ये हमारे जन्मजात व्यवहार को पूरी तरह से नियंत्रित कर सके। ये आज के मनुष्य की, आज के समाज की मूल समस्या है, मैं कहूँगा। ये कौन नहीं जानता कि रिश्वत लेना गलत है, झूठ बोलना गलत है, चोरी करना गलत है। हर व्यक्ति को ये मालूम है, लेकिन ये ज्ञान हमारे व्यवहार को बदल नहीं सकता, क्योंकि ये ज्ञान जाकर के सिर्फ हमारे सेरिब्रल ब्रेन में रिकॉर्ड हो गया है, लेकिन जब करने का समय आता है तो वो हमारा इंस्टिंक्टिव ब्रेन काम करता है और वो मानता नहीं आपकी बात, वो इंडिपेंडेंट है। धीरे धीरे हमारे इंटेलिजेंट ब्रेन का कंट्रोल इंस्टिंक्टिव ब्रेन पे, नीचे के ब्रेन पे इतना हो जाएगा कि मैं जो सही समझता हूँ वही करूँगा, जो गलत समझता हूँ मैं करूँगा ही नहीं। लेकिन दुर्भाग्य से इतना विकास होने में कई लाख वर्ष लगेंगे। विकास की जो प्रक्रिया है इतनी धीमी है कि बंदर से लेके हमारे मस्तिष्क आने में 15 लाख वर्ष लग गए। तो एक तो यह है कि हम कुछ नहीं करें, हाथ पे हाथ धरे हुए बैठे रहें और इंतज़ार करें। 10-5 लाख वर्षों में शायद मनुष्य ही देवता बन जाएंगे, कोई गलत काम करेंगे ही नहीं, बहुत ही अच्छा होगा। लेकिन इतना इंतज़ार कोई कर नहीं सकता। तो दूसरा उपाय ये है कि हम योग जैसे प्रक्रियाओं पर ध्यान दें, उन्हें और विकसित करें, उनका जीवन में उपयोग करें, और उससे हम जैसे एक घुड़सवार घोड़े पे बैठा है और एक तो उसके हाथ में कोई लगाम ही नहीं है, तो वो क्या करेगा, और एक यह है कि उसके हाथ में लगाम दे दी जाए तो वो बहुत कुछ उस घोड़े को नियंत्रित कर सकता है। तो योग एक तरह से हमारे इंटेलिजेंट ब्रेन को ऐसी लगाम प्रोवाइड करता है जिससे हम अपने इंस्टिंक्टिव ब्रेन को बहुत हद तक कंट्रोल कर सकें।
The biggest challenge for yoga today is to rein in the uncontrolled mind in this era of rapid technological advancement. Yoga has helped control our intellect from time immemorial and has elevated our consciousness to a new height. Therefore, we in India remind ourselves that our ancestors followed the path of yoga to reach God's abode. Mahajano yena gata sah pantha. The path traveled by great men is the path. Today, the younger generation is also aspiring to walk the same sacred path. Like Hatha Yogis, they also aspire. May the body remain like gold forever.
सदा रहे कंचन सी काया, काल न कब हूँ